So this month, we've invited Maura Thompson, who's interim executive director and communications manager at the DDA, to give the presentation that she's going to give tomorrow at noon. We'll get a preview of that. The DDA has 2 informational meetings per year at which they describe to the public what they're up to. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity. Don and I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to also to meet with Maura as well, which we've been wanting to do for quite some time. So let me just turn it right over to Maura, and then Maura's got to leave at 8, and then we'll have some time after Maura to talk about some stuff I have in mind. If you can stick around a little bit
to talk about Maura.
Yeah. She's gone now. All right, and we do have some folks on Zoom, and I'm going to ask them to. John Chamberlain, can you just say hello?
Hello.
Good, we can hear you. Excellent. All right. And we have another Zoom participant, Chris, who I don't know, but after we do the presentation, we'll just get this stuff going. All right, very good. And maybe we should go around and just say, one sentence about ourselves. I'm Peter Honeyman. I'm on the DACC, so I'm a downtown resident. And I help to organize the meetings.
And I'm Maura Thompson, as you all know, communications manager, interim director of the DDA.
I'm Steve Holmes, also a downtown resident, and I also, my job background is I'm a real estate lawyer. I'm mostly retired at the moment, but for many years I did real estate deals.
Carolyn Archer, and I live downtown above Hyperion Coffee. And
Joe Archer, downtown resident.
Grace Singleton, board president of Carytown District Association and owner of Zan's Delicatessen.
And I don't know, I'm John Chamberlain. I live in Liberty Lofts and have been a member of this group for a long time, it seems like.
I'm Paul Newhouse, downtown resident.
I'm Farina Brunner. I'm also a downtown resident. I'm Julie Ritter. I'm an Old Fourth Ward resident and here is whatever we are hereby.
And we have one more person on Zoom, but they're not connected to audio at the moment. So I guess, is Chris someone?
Yes. My name is Chris Grant. I'm just a citizen, urban planning background, interested, that's all.
Okay, thanks. Well, this will help me in the minutes to actually put together a roster of who attended. So, all right, let's get into it.
Okay, start. Okay. Well, thank you all for having me. It's really nice to be here. And as Peter already said, I am here to present to you the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority informational meeting for tomorrow, June 7th. And we are required by state statute to do 2 informational meetings a year, and we do them in June and December. So the DDA, the work of the DDA is done by a very small staff of dedicated public servants who are passionate about the work they do, alongside a volunteer board who is responsible for the policy work and our fiduciary oversight. So the DDA runs 2 separate systems. We run a capital investments and placemaking system, which is usually known as our TIF system, and a parking and transportation system. And when I think about the DDA, I like to say we basically have 2 main functions. We take on major infrastructure projects in our downtown, and we run the City of Ann Arbor's public parking system. And I've broken this presentation down by system. So we're going to start with the capital investments and placemaking system, again, otherwise known as our TIF system. The DDA works in sync with the City of Ann Arbor, and our projects are always in service of advancing community goals of Vision Zero, increasing the stock of affordable housing, and reaching our climate neutrality goal by 2030 through the A20 plan. And just as an example, in the past 5 years, 70% of DDA projects are direct partnerships with the City of Ann Arbor. So 2023 is a little bit of a reprieve year for the DDA on the construction side. We have 1 major capital project under construction, that is State Street, Typically, we are juggling multiple capital projects in a single construction season. So the State Street project is, again, a partnership with the city of Ann Arbor, and it's in its final phase of construction. We went through all of last year's construction season, and we anticipate wrapping up hopefully by Labor Day. This will be Ann Arbor's first curbless street design. It also includes a new water main, increased stormwater capacity, street resurfacing, and other streetscape amenities, including a pedestrian plaza at the corner of North Human State. So if you haven't been up there, it's a bit smaller than what we did in Carytown and down at First and Liberty, but it is a plaza. It has Tivoli lights, it has benches. People always love the Tivoli lights, just add so much to the neighborhood. The 4th Ave Transit Street and Street Improvement Project. This is a collaboration between the city, the AAATA, the DDA, and although they're not a funding partner, the Ann Arbor Housing Commission, because of their project that will be upcoming at 350 South 5th. So this project is currently in the design and engineering phase, with construction anticipated in 2026. The project area is somewhat small. It is that one block of 4th between William and Liberty, right adjacent to the Blake Transit Center. And the goal of this project is to improve transit operations at Blake and to improve the safety and comfort for transit riders and all pedestrians. The work includes widened sidewalks, transit stop shelters, a mid-block crosswalk, and if you've ever taken the bus over Blake, you know people are crossing, anywhere on the street. It's really not that safe. We're installing some public art, other streetscape amenities, as well as doing utility work for the Housing Commission's project at 350 South 5th. The DDA on the TIF side also takes on about $500,000 in annual maintenance and repairs to the unique elements of our downtown. So think about the things that are not standard in basic city services. We do the things that are kind of above and beyond. So things like your holiday lights, tree grates, pavers, street furniture, bike hoops, irrigation systems. This photo is an example of work that was completed a few months ago. That's North Main Street. We removed the brick that was in the public right-of-way and replaced it with concrete. Although the brick is more aesthetically pleasing, it's really difficult for maintenance purposes, and it's really, really slippery when it's wet. So as we were talking about the public restroom pilot, so the city administrator held a number of downtown listening sessions last summer. And the concern that rose to the top in each of those sessions was the lack of public restrooms in our downtown. So the city administrator brought together a work group of staff, and we determined that a pilot program would be the best way for us to move forward. And we identified a model on the left, the throne, and like we were talking about earlier, that model was identified really for a number of reasons, but the fact that it monitored and provided service was kind of what made it rise to the top over the other options. We are, however, also exploring other options because with the throne, we have to meet a minimum quantity requirement. And that hasn't been determined yet. So we're still looking at other options. Last month, the DDA began working with a work group of downtown stakeholders. So we have members of the area associations. We have a couple of members from the Commission on Disability Issues, somebody from Delana Center, the library, some key city staff people, and what this work group is doing is establishing project goals and criteria from which we will measure success. At the same time, we have an engineering team that is looking at doing a placement analysis based on those goals and also based on the needs of the throne and our infrastructure, the environment of our infrastructure. We have a number of studies underway and soon to get underway on the TIF side. We have a public art program and process study which we are working on right now, and that is looking at formalizing how we incorporate public art into our projects, and how we can continue to support other public art initiatives in the downtown. The other study is looking at the barricades that are used for the seasonal street closures. We're trying to find an option that provides the necessary level of protection, but has less of a construction site look. And then we have two really critical studies that are on the very near horizon. The downtown circulation study is a collaboration with the city. This is a comprehensive look at the function of downtown streets. Specifically, we are exploring the restoration of two-way traffic to 5th and Division, increasing the connections to the community from the bikeway, exploring transit priority streets based on the RIDE's 2045 long-range plan, and looking at festival or pedestrian-only streets. The intent is to provide clear infrastructure recommendations that will shape the scope, prioritization, and sequencing of capital projects to achieve the city's Vision Zero and complete streets objectives. The second study is an energy utility study. We'll be exploring geothermal in our downtown, and of course, working with the Office of Sustainability and Innovations. We have money programmed in the CIP, $4 million in outlying years for energy projects, and this energy utility study will help us shape the recommendations, or the recommendations from this study will help us shape those projects. For the first time, we are also looking into grant opportunities. So the Office of Sustainability and Innovations, some of you may already be aware of this, but they applied for a Grid Resilience and Innovations Partnerships Grant, which is otherwise known as GRIP. I don't know if you've heard the GRIP grant that the Office of Sustainability has applied for. This is a federal grant through the Department of Energy. The DDA is a sub-grantee on this program and also part of the project team. So this is a really exciting opportunity for our community to create and pilot supplemental renewable energy systems in 3 areas of our community, including downtown. The other 2 areas are the TC1 zoning area out at State and Eisenhower, and the Bryant neighborhood. As I mentioned in the previous slide, we have an energy utility study underway and also have money in the CIP. So with this grant, should we get this grant, and hopefully we will, this will really help us leverage those dollars. So we'll still be spending that money, but we'll have matching funds from this grant. So it can really help us move the needle even further. The other grant that we are exploring is a partnership with the Ann Arbor Housing Commission. It's a revitalization and placemaking program grant, otherwise known as RAP 2.0. There was a RAP 1.0. Housing Commission is applying for $5 million on the real estate side of that grant program, and the DDA is applying for $1 million on the placemaking side for our work on 4th Ave. And together, our application appears to be a really strong application. So we're excited about these opportunities. Reports and data collection. In the past 6 months, the DDA has published a COVID impact and recovery report and a project outcomes report. Both of those are on our website, a2dda.org. And we are also in the process of installing permanent bike counters along the Ann Arbor Bikeway. And this is going to help us really measure the outcomes of that infrastructure that we have installed and to get a real handle on the actual usage. So we've done a lot of counts, which are always really helpful, but when you do a count with an outside firm, they come in for a couple of days, and things like bad weather, construction, maybe the U of M calendar, it all impacts those particular time periods that we're measuring. And our last count that we did, it was when we had a tornado warning in the morning. So nobody was, bikers anticipated knocking on the bike in. So it's kind of a crapshoot when you're just picking random days. So this will allow us to have ongoing data along the bikeway. And now we are going to switch gears and talk about the parking system. So the DDA's approach to parking has always been to look at it as part of a larger transportation system. We've funded the Go Pass for over 20 years, which I think most of you know allows downtown employees to have free rides on the AAATA bus line. We have bike parking in all of our facilities, including 2 bike houses. And through our TIF projects, we have worked to make our downtown streets safer and more comfortable for all users. So on the parking side, we are in a heavy-duty planning and analysis phase. We have 3 major studies underway right now. We have our 20-year maintenance and restoration plan, our parking rate study, and our curbside management study. So the 20-year maintenance plan is a comprehensive analysis of all of the elements of our parking system. So everything from concrete to stairwells to elevators to mechanical systems. We have engineers going through and just looking at everything and doing a really deep dive of an evaluation. And this basically sets the course and prioritizes our maintenance and restoration in all of our facilities. We typically do this update every few years, but this year is particularly important because the last time we did this update was 2020, right before the pandemic hit. The pandemic hit, and throughout the first year and into the next 2 years of recovery, so for like a 3-year period, we had to defer millions and millions and millions of dollars in maintenance. So this is going to be our first update that takes into consideration all of that work that was deferred. At the same time, we are underway with a parking rate study. The last time we looked at rates was 2018 when we implemented a 5-year rate increase plan. The final installment of that plan was last July of 2022. The really important thing to note about that strategy was it included metered on-street meters and it included monthly parking permits. It did not include the hourly structure rates. So the hourly rate in parking structures has remained at $1.20 an hour since 2012. So when you think about how the cost of goods and services and labor and everything has increased, we have to take a hard look at those rates.
You're killing me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, that strategy was put in place at a time when our parking structures were full. We were trying to manage the demand on street better and for, you know, especially in the evenings to try to push people, you know, into parking structures.
That discouraged them from using the
Yeah.
space, yeah.
So anyway, times change, things change. So at the same time that we're doing these 2 studies, we're also underway with a curbside management study, and that's going to help us better manage the demands of the curbside. So we're specifically looking at accessible spaces, loading zones, drop-off pickup spaces, and time limits. And collectively, these 3 studies are going to help us manage this parking system into the future. We also continue to work on our suicide prevention fencing on levels below rooftop. There are, I think, levels, I don't know, maybe 3 and below that are still left to be fenced, and we are working on those now and anticipate having all of that work done by the fall. We also, in the last 6 months, have updated all of the crisis prevention signage on the rooftop with what you see here on the screen. This was produced by the team at Community Mental Health, and we've also installed additional signage on the lower levels of the structures. Annual maintenance. So of course, on the parking side, we're always taking on annual maintenance, things like seal coating, concrete removal and replacement, traffic coatings, joint sealants, paintings, just to name a few things. There's all sorts of stuff that's happening. This picture you see here is our recent restriping of the Klein's lot. You all probably, most of you probably saw some of that happening. And then just a few quick other activities. In the last 6 months, the DDA has hosted a number of events. We co-hosted a bike film festival at the State Theater. We hosted a bike to work station, and in a couple of weeks, we will host our 3rd safety event at the Delana Center. And then finally, project recognition. We are proud that in 2023, we have received 2 awards. The Conceptor Award in Engineering we received for the restoration of two-way traffic on First and Ashley. And from the League of Michigan Bicyclists, we received their 2023 Outstanding Infrastructure Award. And other than encouraging you to sign up for the DDA newsletter at a2dda.org, that is all I have. Thank
Well,
you.
we have a lot. Let me start. How much are these thrones?
The throne is $24,000 a unit
That's,
annually, plus service. And the service ranges between $1,000 and $5,000 a month, depending on usage. So if it's in a high traffic area, you know, obviously the cost is more.
that's a lot. That's,
Yep.
But it's totally self-contained, isn't it? We don't need to run water to it.
Correct, that's right, you don't have to
It's
hook
got
up to
solar
water.
power.
So the infrastructure requirement is long.
Yeah,
It is, and we will have to, even though it's solar powered, we're looking for locations where we can hook up to electricity, because in our climate, you can't always rely
Yeah.
on the solar, but you're right, in an ideal world, there are no other infrastructure needs, but there are things like, the slope of the
Yeah.
sidewalk, and
Yeah.
we have to always make sure, of course, that we maintain the right of way, and I don't think when we do the placement analysis that we're gonna have too many options. I think it's gonna be pretty limited.
and there's a minimum number that we have to commit to,
Yes,
15, right?
correct.
Yeah. I found the old notes.
the same, that's good. Yeah.
So that is a
So
lot.
15 of them in all of downtown. No?
We are only, the DDA has committed to 1, 2 at the most.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think our downtown, I feel like we can't support that many zones.
Because of the money or the,
I think I think we're gonna be really limited location-wise, but also, yeah, the financial commitment.
I mean, you could take up a parking space in the Klein lot, right? I mean, there's
Well,
lots of parking spaces, surface lots around.
Yeah, I don't know if a parking lot is necessarily where we're gonna land once we do the goals and criteria.
Yeah,
Because one of the things is you want you want any bathroom in a very visible place. You don't really want it tucked away somewhere. You want it in a place where there's a lot of activity. You want it to be used by families that are coming, by people who are visiting, by people who are unhoused. You want it for everybody, and I think it has to be in a location that's.
How do you measure demand? How do you measure demand for public bathrooms?
You put it out there and count, right?
What?
You put it out there
Yeah.
and just count.
Well,
Yeah, well, and one of the things we found during the pandemic, and this was before our city administrator heard this from the downtown community, but for that year, when the library was closed,
Yeah.
the Lake Transit was closed, if you didn't have access to a bathroom from your own home, you were really out of luck. And I mean, that was sort of for the DDA, we started thinking about this back probably in the fall of 2020, actually. And we started talking about it because I think our whole country has a lack of public restrooms. I mean, I think that's like a known thing, right?
yeah.
And so, yeah, it became very obvious during the pandemic.
So for sure, there will be one over somewhere near Liberty Plaza, I assume. I mean, that's what most people think of as the biggest need. I mean, I find people urinating in the alley, next to my place, which is annoying. 2 blocks from the library. So do you think that's, I don't want to dominate it, I just have a bunch of questions, so,
Go for it.
yeah.
Go.
So State Street looks so great with the curbless design until last week when the cars came back and were parking there, and all of a sudden, it just looked horrible again with cars lined up, separating the street from the sidewalks and kind of putting a barrier there.
Yeah.
So what's the chance that we could get rid of the cars, the parking on State, that close down State Street? I mean, it's been interesting, right? I live on 4th Avenue, so Main Street's closed, State Street's closed. These are north-south. Division is a shit show with the bike lanes. It's carrying, half the traffic. 4th Avenue is carrying the other half. Of course, 4th Avenue is carrying all the buses as well. So I'm looking forward to the day when Main Street opens again and State Street opens again. That's part of me. The other part of me says, man, it's great having Main Street closed and State Street closed. It's just been
Well,
fabulous.
that's what, we have a circulation study that's gonna look at just that, but State Street, I can tell you from our public engagement with the stakeholders, I would say if you spoke to the businesses on State Street, loading zones on State Street and some of the parking on State Street is important to them.
So loading zones, I certainly
But you
understand.
You can still have a loading zone.
Yeah.
One of my sons lives in Luxembourg, and if you look at downtown Luxembourg, the city, there are no cars there, and it's a huge area where there are no cars, but there are streets, there are plenty of walkways, and the way that a store will get deliveries is a truck will drive into, so it doesn't prevent all traffic, but those kind of services can use those areas. So it's not, so the delivery to me should not be an issue, because if you're making a delivery, you should
These
still be able to
cameras,
use that.
do they then ticket people that drive in there with their cars?
I haven't seen a car there that's been
I got
towed,
ticketed that
so-
way.
Well, yeah,
I made a
well,
wrong turn.
yeah,
It was
well.
an expensive wrong turn.
yeah.
I think, the circulation study is,
Yeah,
we have heard people interested in pedestrian malls or festival streets, whatever you want to call them, so that's why we're.
I'd love to see
Exploring.
State Street, Main Street, and Liberty all closed.
Yeah,
I think that'd be terrific.
Liberty, like up to.
Well, Liberty between Main and State,
Oh, the
it's
whole
so that
thing.
there be these pedestrian walkways. And, when the streets are closed, you see pedestrians, really swarming
Yeah, they
into the
take over the
street.
streets.
And, the restaurants open up and you've got, you're eating outside. I don't know. I understand that the shop owners didn't want it because they think that the cars driving by will see their store and know it's there, and therefore somebody will then come back and find them. But again, I've seen it too much in Europe, that it strikes me that it's a system where it can actually, I think, encourage more traffic as opposed to less traffic.
Well, and I think we're, downtown Ann Arbor, we're making strides. Before the pandemic, if you had said the city council is gonna allow Main Street to be closed every weekend from, May to
Yeah.
October, I don't know if it would have happened. We've got, when we did public engagement for the curbless street on State Street, there was some pushback, I think
Oh,
we're
yeah,
making
yeah.
strides.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying these things can happen overnight, and I'm not, that nothing is gonna be 100% perfect or 100% supported. But I like the idea, one of my favorite ideas is the 15-minute city.
Yeah.
And so, but getting there, you need enough people living downtown so that there are people supporting the stores and
Right.
whatnot. If you talk to some of the brokers that were here at our last meeting, talked about, the need for more office workers because that helps supporting the restaurants and so on. So it's a system that requires a lot of elements to support what you're looking for. So I'm pleased that you're planning things like this or thinking about contemplating it so that you can, because all of these things take time, right?
Right.
It doesn't, you can't change it overnight.
No.
So, but then, getting through that a step at a time. The parking study is also interesting to me, because I heard on NPR about a guy who wrote a book about parking. And the parking requirements, say, for an apartment building, this guy says we build more parking spaces than we do, one-bedroom apartments in the country. And so that we spend a lot of time and money and space building parking structures. So, but on the other hand, people that are gonna come and shop, downtown, they want a place to park. So it's, how do you transition from maybe a completely mobile community where everybody gets to places via a car, or in a pedestrian community?
Well, and like I can say the DDA has no plans on building additional parking, and I think what we're
Yeah.
doing is trying to make sure that there's a range of options for
Yeah.
people, which is why the bike lanes,
Sure,
or the
sure,
bus
yeah,
pass,
yeah.
excuse me.
Just one question, because I'm not very familiar with the parking system in downtown, previously student, so I'm curious, you talk about the parking rate, and that has been an issue. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? From my knowledge.
Sure, so our parking system is incredibly expensive to run, and it has to be self-sustaining. So we need parking rates to pay for parking operations, maintenance. So we haven't looked at parking rates in about 5 years. And the last time we looked at those rates, we didn't look at the rates for people just parking in parking structures. We only looked at the rates for people who parked on street and who had parking permits. So it's time for us to take a comprehensive look at all of the parking rates.
And so parking system is kind of self-sustaining.
Yes, and we, also, it's important to note the parking system, 20% of the revenue right off the top goes to the city, to its general fund. And so that's,
Sure.
that's a very real
Big chunk
cost.
of money.
Yeah.
Do you know off the top of your head what that is? order
Well, so if you, let's see, say we had, now, pre-pandemic, it was probably 24 million in parking revenue. Say we're coming in at maybe 17 or 18 million. So do the math, 20%, I don't know, close to 4 million, but it was getting up there. I mean, we had anticipated, I want to say in 2021, maybe, we had budgeted like 25 million, I think, in parking revenue, so that would have been 5 million, right? Yeah.
Laura, on the circulation study, is part of that going to be looking at the volume of people that are coming into the downtown for tourists as well as for working again, or?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that we have, it's very comprehensive. It's doing all these multimodal modeling. So I'm assuming it will be looking at things like that, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'd be really curious to see it, because the last time I think it was updated was maybe 2018 on your site. This last study I think I saw, I don't know, there used to be like 80,000 people coming in to the city every day for work compared to how many went out and how many lived there, right?
Right.
I don't think that touched tourism as much though.
Right.
And I'm just curious, because the balance with all this, like I love the idea of having some pedestrian streets, but the balance of all this is the economy is really a tourist economy.
Yeah.
And the shops aren't gonna make it unless we get the tourists in. We gotta still make room for them to come in, because they're coming in cars. And so balancing those two, and I love the idea of having like really accessible motorized transit that fits, and then you have your bikeways and your pedestrian ways other places. You still gotta move traffic, and we're not moving traffic right now. I mean, besides all the construction projects, we have some issues with timing of lights and how things flow. I was on the transportation group, and we talked about you could lower the speed limit to 25 in the whole city, but if you retooled all the lights and looked at it on a huge basis, you could actually get through town way faster, and you wouldn't have a problem, and it would be safer, right? But that's a whole different thing. So I don't know, I just want to make sure we're balancing it all, because if we don't have the people downtown from the offices anymore, we're relying even more on tourism. We just need to, at some point, they're going to get annoyed and not come.
Yeah, and I can,
And we're not going to make it. Because they'll be just restaurants. They'll all, all the lunches have closed for the most part.
Yeah, no, daytime economy suffering big time.
Bad,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I can do a deeper dive into that RFP and,
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'll
I think
find
it'd
out.
be interesting data, especially after COVID,
yeah.
because it's all shifted so
Right.
much.
Right, well, that's why the timing on all of this is really good.
Yeah.
Even the curbside management
back.
plan, that was something we had intended to do, it was prior to the pandemic.
Yeah,
That was on
yeah.
our docket.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, I mean, it's, sorry, I have a lingering cough. It's really good that we didn't get underway with that study, because
Yeah.
it would have all been for naught. I mean, everything's changed.
Yeah, now it seems like we're settled
New,
down.
kind of new normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, hard to tell a little bit, because how much of the office use is gonna come back, and will it be downtown?
Right.
Yeah, that's a big
Anyone's guess.
question.
Yeah.
I hear that question raised all the time.
Yeah.
For people in Zoom land, we're talking about whether office space, whether commercial space downtown will revitalize. It's in terrible shape now.
It is.
And I've heard from folks that are in the know that, you know, most of the restaurants downtown are behind in their rent. And that many of the commercial places as well are negotiating with their landlords for deals, because they're just not making it. We also see a lot of empty storefronts downtown,
Yeah.
which is sort of unusual.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, Jacona's name is all over town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's true.
Is there any reason to believe that shopping and office occupancy is ever going to come back to the pre-pandemic level? I mean, from what I read, it seems unlikely. So maybe you
Office
can quit
occupancy,
worrying
yeah.
about parking spaces. You're gonna have plenty of parking for the next decade.
Yeah. You're right.
And I'm really curious in these various studies, what are the assumptions gonna be on a return to the past?
I think
I
it's
really
really hard
don't
to tell.
think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't know what assumptions are made in, for example, the circulation study.
Who's making these assumptions?
Well, we have a whole team working on the study, and it hasn't gotten underway yet, but it's a collaboration with the city. And so there's city staff and DDA staff working with the team. I'm not the technical person, so I'm.
But you're right, the forecast on office use is gonna be fascinating to see that. Because people aren't coming back to work, or they're coming back 2 days a week or 3
Yeah.
days a week maybe, and then working from home. And so what's the long-term impact gonna be? I don't know.
I mean, if you're a business and you can save X thousands of dollars by cutting your office space in half, they're gonna do that.
A lot of businesses have done exactly that.
And then they're gonna keep doing it.
Well, you read about office, used generally around the country.
It's
Yeah.
universal.
It is universal. So the use is down, and, the REITs that own, office buildings and whatnot, or lend on them. I mean, there's a huge concern around the country for the future of office space.
Yeah.
And you read about New York and, conversion of office buildings to residential. So it's hard to know exactly where we're going on all
How do you imagine that would play out in Arbor?
Can you speak up, please?
Oh, how do you imagine that would play out in Arbor, like office building conversion? Because I know many office buildings are in historical structures, or they're I'm just imagining like those buildings on State Street. How do you like convert them to like housing?
It's expensive, it's very expensive, but, it can be done. But you're right, there's a big price, but it's better to do something than nothing, because if you just have an empty office building, that's not viable either. So, but yes, you're right, the conversion of an office building to residential is a very expensive proposition.
Well, one of the things in our COVID impact and recovery report, if you look at the findings, from DDA perspective, we recognize that we can't rely on office. There's no way to predict if it's
Right.
coming back, so we have to diversify. And what does that
Yeah.
look like? Is it making more connections to the river and to other amenities to bring more tourists in? So our goal is to diversify, not to,
What-
hope that our office workers are coming back, because there's no way to predict that.
There is no way to predict it.
I mean,
Well,
Other than the football season, what is the tourist traffic in Ann Arbor? Does anybody know?
I think it's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I mean, I know
Well,
hotel
what are the
occupancy
numbers?
rates.
I mean,
Well, hotel occupancy rates, I used to sit on the CVB board, and they were right up there around 80%, which is pretty high. So I think in tourism, this is in our COVID impact report too. Tourism bounced back, like as of like last year, maybe, they were back to pre-pandemic levels. So I think tourism's strong.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many reasons for people to come there, right? So it's for the university, check out the school, to visit the kids, games, there's,
There, the dispensaries, there.
Well, there's
There are,
auditorium.
there
I mean,
definitely
Well,
are.
you and me, man, but, you know.
There's an auditorium, I mean, there are a lot of events that occur.
There's-
It's also like, let's get out of Manchester for an evening, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But
the
that's what,
art
5
fair and
people?
summer festival and things like that.
500 people.
But also just, passing through, like, it's amazing the amount of people who will be going up north, they're coming back down, or to the hospital, that, like, the amount of people that have to go to the hospital for monthly or annual things, and then they make a day of it,
Yeah.
and they go out to eat, and they go shop, and so it's interesting how people come into Ann Arbor and why, because it's pretty varied, and I think you're right, that diversification is key. I also wonder about the shared workspace, like the place that's on South Industrial,
Mhm.
seems to be, I don't know, I don't know them, but
Venue?
I've talked to them, it seems like it's going well.
Yeah.
And I wonder if so many people are working from home and you get sick of being in your home, is that an option for offices?
Well, and
too? I
we've
don't
got
know.
Cahoots and Mercantile,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe something else, I don't know. But yeah, and I think they're doing well.
I don't know.
But we live across the street from Artist Farm Stop, and that has become office space.
Yeah.
And the place is full of people clearly working, so they're not going downtown to an office.
What I've heard is that, millennials and Xers are not that interested in going back to the office. But Zoomers can't stand the idea of continuing to work at home after having been through high school and college at home through COVID. They want an office. So this is going to change. There are some generational influences on it that will change things.
But I wouldn't hold my breath that it's going to come back to pre-pandemic
But it's
levels.
certainly worthwhile
I
to
would
sort of
either, yeah.
get a data point where we stand right now, and then make projections from there. That's what you're gonna do, right?
I wouldn't
In
build an
terms of the
office building
studies?
down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, we're dealing with what we have,
Or-
our
or
modeling is
parking
based
structure.
on.
Or, well, no, that's right, or a parking structure.
Yeah, no, and Maura said that.
Yeah.
But on parking it seems like traditionally, at least in Midwest, people just don't want to go into parking structures. But what happens if you do what some people are suggesting, is take away the parking on State Street and Main Street?
I think they'll go into
You know,
parking
I think
structures.
that's what-
Yeah.
You gotta come downtown.
They're probably
And
not
there's
gonna
space
go to
now, which
Manchester
that
to
feels
have
great.
lunch,
Very
right?
nice to me. So, it's good.
They'll
I've
park
always
in the
thought so.
structures. I'm sorry?
So I've always thought they were gonna go into parking structures.
Yeah, I thought they would too.
My wife is perfectly happy to park in the parking structures except in the basement.
I always park in the basement.
She thinks it's kind
We
of,
have one parking structure that's just a basement.
yeah, she thinks it's kind of rapey down there.
I'm excited about the geothermal. Geothermal downtown, that's really exciting. I think
Really
that's
exciting.
got some potential.
Yeah.
And this grant that Missy is going after, this GRIP grant,
Yeah.
could be huge for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super
Exciting
exciting.
time.
It's the right time for this. My former department, the computer science department, is building a new building that's going to be completely geothermal. They're not going to have any heating or cooling from natural gas or electricity. It's all just geothermal.
Wow,
That's awesome.
That's great, that is awesome.
So yeah, when will the private sector be doing it?
Well, I think that when enough folks are doing this, the price will come down.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah, it'll scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More shared, I think having it shared for downtown is pretty amazing. We talked about it when we did the Valley project, but it just wasn't, it was gonna be too complicated, it would have made it take way longer than we had, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Maura, could you also explain the restructuring of like how the DDA is going to meet, like once a, because I think this is really helpful to everybody who wants to attend.
Yeah, so keep in mind, the board has not made any changes yet. It wouldn't happen until July at the
Right.
annual meeting. So what, excuse me, what we are proposing, right now, the DDA has 1 board meeting and 5 committee meetings. So
Every, how long?
every month, each month.
Okay.
So for a board member, to be really well informed, John knows this, you need to come to as many committee meetings as you can so that you're informed to make decisions around the board table. The board is a volunteer board. People are busy. They have a lot of commitments. We found over the last, few years, our committee meetings maybe have 2 or 3 board members. It's a lot of staff time, and it's a big commitment for board members. So what we're thinking about doing and what we're proposing to the board is to restructure the way we do our work and do one monthly, a 2-hour work session each month that would incorporate all of the work that would formerly have gone to a committee, with the hope that as many board members as possible can attend that meeting, so that then at the board meeting, people are more equally informed around the table. And we had thought about this, and in doing research on, we're starting to think about renewal, we've been doing research with Grand Rapids and Traverse City DDA, and coincidentally, it's how they do their work, and it's very effective. So really, this is about efficiency, being respectful of people's time, and what I'm gonna mention to the board tomorrow is nothing is set in stone. The board at its July meeting cannot reappoint committees. Nothing has to be done for us to do a work session. If after a few months they decide that individual committee meetings are more effective, at a board meeting, they pass a resolution to establish a committee. So we're not doing anything that is permanently changing. It's just something to try.
It's an experiment.
It's a
But a
pilot,
worthwhile
yeah,
one.
Right.
and see how it goes.
And I think for a group like this, to be able to go and hear everything in one place instead of trying to spread it out, right, Peter?
We meet quite often, don't we?
Yes, we do, we do. No, and I
Yeah.
hope, I really have my fingers crossed on that.
So-
And like you say, it can be tweaked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I went back and looked, and last year, we had 17 working committee hours. So if we do this work session model, we'll have 24 hours over the course of the year to plug in, and I'm confident that staff can balance that work. So.
Worth a try.
Yeah.
Would you be able to give us an overview of how the executive director search is proceeding and will proceed?
Well, nothing has happened to date. Tomorrow at the board meeting, staff will be presenting. At the last board meeting, the board asked for a timeline on what different options would look like and a review of how the previous search went. I think they used the word postmortem. So tomorrow at the board meeting, excuse me, staff will be presenting a report that reviews kind of timelines, options for the board to discuss. And my understanding is tomorrow will be discussion. I don't believe they'll make any decisions in terms of what path they're gonna go down until July.
But the 3 choices seem to be to hire an outside group to do the search, or to, second, to use the city's services to run a search,
Mhm.
or third, to hire someone.
Mhm.
Those are the 3 options.
Yes.
And we
The
know,
options.
we hope for it. Yay, more options.
Or just hire someone.
Or just hire someone.
Or just hire Laura.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Or if there's anything we can do to put our honest to goodness vote in for you, please let us know.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I appreciate the support.
There's always an opportunity for input to the DDA. They have public, their meetings are public, and they have a period at the beginning for community input. So,
Anything else?
well, your time is almost up with us. You said you wanted to be out by 8.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have 8 minutes.
Yeah. 8 minutes. Quick chess game, anyone?
Also a great presentation.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Oh, thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing it again
See you again
tomorrow.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, I'll be very well versed. I'll have all the right questions tomorrow.
Okay, so I'm gonna.
And
Okay.
don't you think that this is one of those times, like everything, not everything, but so many things are up for grabs. It's like, commercial space, retail, online shopping. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
things right now. And the book that you mentioned was also reviewed in the Times today.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
Paradise is in the name because of
yes,
the
I think
old,
so, yeah.
the old Joni Mitchell song.
Right.
And it's really stunning because when we think about a parking space and what that square footage is, that's one thing, but it's like, it also includes the space you need to get in and out
Sure,
of that,
exactly.
which is over 2/3 of what a present day efficiency apartment is.
Exactly.
It's stunning.
It is stunning.
And of course, you can look back and say, oh, the car was, it was the main, I mean, we live near Detroit and things change. And absolutely, destination. And Carytown knows that. I mean, it's, so many businesses do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really a
yeah,
destination
yeah.
for a lot of people,
Yeah.
so.
But I
And-
think that another, excuse me, silver lining, if you can call it that, of the pandemic is just the flexibility of how we now use our parking spaces. I think before the pandemic, if you had said to a business, we're gonna repurpose the space, in front of your street, there was just not a
They
lot
would not
of
reacted well.
room for,
Yeah, I mean, the city's engineers would not agree to allowing side spaces to be used. There had to be a solid
A
curb
Jersey
there.
barrier, yeah.
And it was pretty old school.
Yeah.
And given the pandemic and what people need to do with outside seating, they've totally changed their point of view on that, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
The traffic engineers have definitely changed their perspective on curbside use.
and I think even some businesses who felt like they had to have a parking spot right in front of their business, or that was just gonna be the end of them.
Right.
And it's just not the reality,
No,
because the space typically isn't
Right.
taken by your customer, and, it just changes, and so I feel like that was another, it allowed people to kind of think a little bit more broadly about that space.
I thought it was also interesting in that book, they talk about just increasing the price of using that individual parking space to encourage people not to just park there and have their
Yeah.
car sit there all day and just feed the meter
Yeah.
and make it too expensive so that they can't do that.
Right,
So, I mean, it's interesting to look at parking overall.
yeah.
Um,
Well, one of the things in the parking rate study probably won't be a surprise to anybody, but, when is our parking most used?
Yeah.
Later in the day and in the evening. Well, we stop charging at 6 o'clock. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've personally been screaming about that for 15 years, so.
I mean, now might be the time, right? Like,
Yeah, maybe. It's still cultural, and it's still can be difficult to overcome, but it's.
yes,
But it very definitely makes sense.
yes.
I will say, we have to think about the workforce too, though.
Yeah.
And if we make the downtown parking too expensive, and you have a 15-minute city, the people that work there aren't often in the 15 minutes.
No, that's-
So we need to think
Yeah.
about that.
But also, there's always been the argument that why should the daytime economy basically support the evening economy? It's unfair. The evening economy should be paying its fair share
Yeah.
in parking revenue.
Yeah.
It's And that's been true for a long time.
And regarding workforce housing, like, saying like converting a lot of the commercial space
Yeah.
to residences, and you're saying how expensive, and I mean, talk to any architect, and they're just, it's,
Right.
and in a lot of cases, it simply can't be done.
Right.
But if indeed it's so expensive, then once again, you're looking at high-end housing costs.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
gentrifying as a result, like the stuff that's happening where DTE was on Main Street, those are high-end,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and, they have to be given what those costs are, even
Right.
though they didn't,
Right.
yeah, but it's further gentrification.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of changes.
Yeah.
I mean, we're learning the hard way that affordable housing has to be subsidized. That there's no way to force developers to do it. There's no way to provide, you know, incentives. They're really non-incentives. They're anti-incentives. Those don't work. We've learned that in recent years. And we're doing something about it, you know, we're building. The city is building affordable housing.
The city just yesterday, they passed a resolution, like yesterday, about using bond financing.
About what?
Using bond
Bond
financing for
financing.
affordable housing because the millage is not enough
Yeah.
to achieve the promise of
Yeah.
affordable.
Yeah, the village probably needs to be 4 times what it was.
Which
I'm
then
just
raises
throwing that
people's-
number out there, but.
Just.
Yeah, then raises people's taxes again, so that they
Right.
can't afford to live here because, yeah.
And that's really the irony of it, yeah. The people who are just at the edge get moved out so that, and everybody's taxes, if you own property, they're going up 5% this month. Period, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Maura, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm sorry you have to listen to that presentation again.
No, it's a good presentation, it's really clear.
I'll take my cough and get out of here. I'm not contagious anymore, it's been a long time, but.
And,
Okay.
See y'all.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Bye. Let's stick around a minute, do some gabbing and maybe some planning. What's new around here? Anything?
Oh,
Is your place burned down?
no,
Okay, that's good. It's still your
the
place?
place, the place next door burned down, but
Yeah, but not your place, yeah.
I have a brand new roof. I'm happy to announce.
That's good.
And they did a fine job, right?
Yes, they did. It's
Okay.
beautiful.
So, I mean, so you owned you're still on, I'm not sure what the status is, but a downtown business that did rely on people, parking for 5 minutes and leaving, right? I mean, so how important is that to businesses?
I think overall it's very important. And again, we're going in the direction where, and I think that we're committed to going in the direction where visitors, at least during the day, are not as important as residents. It's important to have people in walking distance of your business, and I think that's the
Or you lived
overall,
underneath Punch
the overall plan.
Yeah.
Going forward. But yeah, it's still important to have spaces where people, and I think since, again, another thing that's happened since the pandemic, and I think DDA has been much more aware of the fact that that needs to happen. They put a lot of temporary restaurant parking in for takeout orders. It's still, it may be transitional, but I think it's still important at this point to have those parking opportunities on the curb so that people can if they indeed want to come downtown to conduct business from outside of downtown, that they have an opportunity to just, go in and out.
One thing I gleaned from a recent DDA meeting is that the parking residency time in many cases, I think it's most cases, is very short, 15 minutes or less, which suggests that maybe we're just not doing parking right at all. That 15 minutes should be free, and then charge a lot for more.
Yeah. Yeah, and that argument's been out there for a long time, and probably, and it makes a lot of sense to allow, and a lot of cities are doing it.
But it relies-
If you allow people to park for a half hour for nothing and, you know, over that,
Yeah, but you need enforcement.
and again, that's always the case.
That's really
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah. It could probably be done more efficiently than we're doing it. There's a lot of technology out there that allows you to do it more efficiently,
Yeah, that's
but at the same time, it's, there's always been resistance here to that as well.
Speaking of enforcement, Joseph and I attended a meeting at Connor O'Neill's that was put on by Main Street Area Association, and it was several police that are heading up like a downtown kind of task force. Is that the right? Basically, the Main Street Area Association, obviously there had been a lot of complaints. Diners who are being harassed by what the police call frequent flyers, and people who are really causing trouble or scaring people away. And not so much a danger, but simply making things uncomfortable. And what I have to say, the cops who were involved showed a great deal of compassion, understanding, and also frustration that in so many ways their hands are tied and that they really cannot always, enforce things the way they would see fit. Get that look off your face, Peter. Peter hates the cops, I know. But anyway, I risk it by giving this report. But what they did say, and this is the only reason I bring it up, not to harass you, Peter. The reason I bring it up, they said, if there is any kind of an incident, be it serious, not serious, or somebody needs help, and this is all until the unarmed response team is put into effect and everything like that, which is coming, but is taking time. But any kind of anything, call 911. There's no longer a dispatch number, and you describe what's going on. The cops may never come, if it's a report, but what they're trying to do is track where the incidents are occurring. They need record of that. So and I'm not saying I'm encouraging everybody to do this, but that's what the police are saying, is please report it, call 911.
I just don't trust them. My understanding is when you call 911, the police will come.
Not
Right now,
necessarily.
what they're changing, basically, they're gonna triage it with a 911 call. They're not necessarily going to police, they may go to EMT, or they may go to social work, wait for that one phone call.
That they're setting it up. So it's a new approach, and there was the lieutenant in charge is a guy by the name of Corey Mills. Old Ann Arbor really seemed, knew all the old bars and everything like that, and he was very sort of open and compassionate. Then there was a younger guy who had on all of the cop drag and his radio and his gun and his and he was like much more strident and much more frustrated by what he could and couldn't do. But it seemed like there was a pretty high level of communication between the team members. And I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm just passing on this information because they really said, this is what you have to do, if anything. And a number of the Main Street merchants and restaurateurs were there who seemed to be not only in need of the police support, but grateful for this meeting.
I'm sorry, I missed that meeting. Where was it announced?
Main Street Area Association, you're a member, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm a residential member.
Yes, yes, are we?
Yeah, I actually have a question about this. Actually, I know the city actually established to like,
Hi.
Hi, so I know the city actually established a team that consisted of police officers and supportive connect members, and they're from your perception or from what you heard from Ministry Area Association, what has changed? Or have you ever observed this kind of member? I don't very realize there's an active patrol team in the downtown.
I don't think Supportive Connections has gotten underway.
It isn't in place yet.
Yeah.
They're working, the city's working really hard to put that in place. And one of the people who's been very active is Frances Todoro Hargraves, State Street. And she was there and appreciative of the presentation. It's taking a long time to put that into effect, into place. And this is what they're saying in the meantime. It's kind of a bridge.
I'm kind of like having an ambiguous attitude about having them there, like, just, I don't know, like, how
Having the
they,
police or having both.
like, having the police at the downtown. I'm just curious, like, do you know, like, how they'll be handling the situations?
How the police,
Yeah, like, when you call 911, what's already happening?
We live downtown, we see that happening all the time. I'm very impressed with the way the police handle it. I watch them, they stand back, they are so polite. In times, I'm thinking, God, how can they possibly be doing that? They're being spit upon and everything else, but they're still being really, really cool.
I see
think
the
it's a
same
really
thing.
great police department.
I see the same thing, looking out my window. I live across from Courthouse Square, and there's a lot of issues at Courthouse Square. The police are there every day, pretty much. And I see the same thing. They are, they're not confrontational. They stand back, and they let things work themselves out. Nonetheless, I can't see how putting a bunch of heavily armed guys into, a situation really helps the situation. Last Saturday at the African American Festival, the police were out in force. I don't know if anyone went, but they were there. There were like 4 cops there the whole time on this, in this 2 blocks, which was new.
Wow.
In most years, you don't see a large police presence. Of course, it was all of the black police of Ann Arbor. But nonetheless, they're trying stuff, I guess. I would like to see them.
They were there in response to the Main Street associations call and need for support and help. That was why they were there. It was under the
You mean
auspices
at
O'Connor O'Neill's.
Yeah, they were there too.
And what was made clear was that there are just a lot of calls going in because people coming to Ann Arbor are really being intimidated. Again, we live right in the middle of and we see both sides of that. We see the police being really great at times. Also, I don't think anybody in this room who lived through George Floyd we can't, we know that lots of times the whole thing has been mishandled without question. But there is that attempt and that team, which is in the process of being formed. And part of it is how are they even going to dispatch it? That's one of the big questions. Like you call in and say, a person's face down on the ground and needs help. Is a social worker on call 24 hours to be dispatched? Does that person have a vehicle? I mean, it's a big undertaking, but one that the city's doing, which is good. Yeah.
Peter, did I hear you say that there were 4 cops there and they were out in force? Maybe in Manchester. But I wouldn't call 4 police officers in Ann Arbor out in force.
I mean, you walk down the street and there's every direction you look, there's a cop there. In past years, you've never seen the police. I've never seen the police there.
Could that have been to like help out or be around for active shooter type stuff too? I mean, just throwing out other options.
I got the impression they were doing kind of, press the flesh kind of stuff, meet the people.
Yeah, and I think the business community's been pushing for that. And again, I can understand from my perspective, I'm a downtown resident. I'm retired. I no longer run a business downtown. From my perspective, I'm much more easygoing about what takes place downtown in a natural sort of way. People are asking for money. People are, doing this, doing that. As a resident, it's just part of the environment that I live in. I'm fine with it. As a business owner, you always have to be worried about what your customers think about that situation, and you don't have control over that.
I don't like being harassed.
It's a different perspective, and I can appreciate the business perspective on it because, you know, anything that is potentially making your customers uncomfortable, you can argue whether or not they should be uncomfortable or not, whether they need to
But if they are,
adjust their attitude.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's still, you know, it's still, it affects your business, and I can understand the business
Yeah,
perspective.
I mean, we need a broader spectrum of response, and we're getting it. We're
Agreed.
getting it.
Yeah, and it's being worked on, I think, and effectively worked on out.
I'm optimistic that things will improve.
Yeah, it's coming.
I'm happy to hear. Thank you for sharing that, Carolyn. 2 weeks ago, Sunday, I was harassed by the fellow named Anthony Ketzner, and he told me I was walking my dog about like 7:30 in the morning, and he started coming at me and telling me he was gonna F me up. And I tried to get away from him, and I ended up having to pick up my dog and run into Hyperion, and I got pinned in there for about 20 minutes and had to use the barista's phone to call 911. So I'm happy to hear that people are looking for those frequent flyers, because the last week and a half I've been calling people and saying, what can I do? What's the appropriate action? And like nobody's really saying that they can do anything about this guy, and apparently he's already punched someone in the head. So I just feel like it's getting warmer and more people are, you know, doing their circuits and coming into town here. But I'm happy to hear that there's at least some type of an effort being made, because it's been tough lately. It's been hard for me to leave my house sometimes. So for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, Anthony's been around town for a long time,
I don't know Anthony.
and he's been pretty active on Ashley, Liberty, Washington as of late. I don't think he's a dangerous guy, but he can act.
Right.
He can act like a dangerous guy.
He can create fear. in people,
Yes.
so.
Yeah,
And do the police ever contemplate, you know, having basically a cop walking the beat? I mean, you know,
That's been around for a long time too, and
yeah,
yeah.
so didn't they just
Not
add
that I
2
better-
police positions?
I think they lost two, too.
They're really
I
understaffed.
thought they were devoting 2 to walking the beach.
And I thought it was 3, and whether it's my understanding is it's not necessarily walking a beat. And I'm not totally informed about this,
Yeah.
but I think that they have 3 people dedicated, whether they're in uniform or in plain clothes, to be more responsible to downtown, and as just a starting point to figure out the issues. And again,
I mean, just have them walking around, I mean, then people can see him, all the people can see him.
Yeah.
The ones that may be troublemakers, but then the others that are just shopping and see, in a more casual context, as opposed to a guy that you know, looks like he's about to shoot somebody. But just, you know, walking the street to see how things are going, in a sense, making people feel comfortable as opposed to uncomfortable. Because they know that there's somebody there that might be able to help them out.
I feel uncomfortable when there's a guy with a gun.
Yeah, exactly, I do too. Well, oh, you mean even a cop with a gun?
That's the guy I'm talking
There's lots of guys with guns walking around that you don't know have guns.
I prefer not, I prefer
Although in the UK, maybe this has changed, you know, you have cops walking a beat, they don't have a gun.
Yes.
You know, they may have a, you know.
Yeah, considering that, like, you know, cops basically never use their guns.
Right,
I don't see why.
but a uniformed,
Always are.
you know, guy that clearly has authority, even if he doesn't have a gun.
They're really understaffed, Steve. They're just.
Yeah.
And it isn't that they
yeah.
don't have the money to hire,
Yeah.
they're just having a hard time finding qualified.
We've had a lot of retirements in the last.
And
And
a
that's what's
lot,
happening.
a lot of
Everybody's
retirements.
retiring.
Yeah.
That came in 20
Yeah,
years ago.
and the job's not getting any easier.
No.
Or more fun, right.
They also said that lots of times that if they are in sort of a confrontational or just even a discussion with a frequent flyer, anyway, that people, it's usually Peter, people will come up and say, how dare you harass this person?
I've never.
And that they're,
know.
no, I know, I'm teasing you, but that people will criticize them,
Yeah.
like, how can you do this? Can't you see this person is really having trouble or whatever? And that's one of the the places, like you say, John, it's not getting easier.
No, and I hope that we're in a transitional period where
Exactly.
we are going to, the job's not getting any easier. You're going to need a different type of individual to
Yes.
fill it.
That's
You-
exactly
you-
right.
You will need to pay them more, train them more, but at the same time, you'll end up with a better result,
It's kinda like
a better, a person who's able to handle a variety of situations, I hope more calmly, and, if that's the end result of this, period that we're going through, that's a positive.
I hope that's where we're going.
It's like a uniform social worker. Because, they're not there to pull the gun and arrest somebody, they're there to, obviously keep the peace.
I could start working on some costumes.
There you go.
The job's already hard enough to fill.
So this is a conversation that we've had
In the
more than
past,
once.
yes.
Yeah, and we've
Yeah.
returned.
And we will continue to
And
have.
this has been a good conversation, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think about next month? Should we meet? Should we cancel? Don's out of town. It's kind of on me. I'm a little bit,
What would the date be next month?
the first Tuesday.
Be like the 3rd of July or something.
You know,
First Tuesday.
The other thing is the DDA meeting.
Yeah, the
Like,
DDA
they're
meeting
going to
was
have
part
the
of that.
consolidated,
Well, so the DDA meeting actually is being moved. It's not going to be on the 4th. 4th is a Tuesday?
4th is Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, so I think they're gonna meet on the 6th, so we would meet on the 5th. Anyway, we meet the day before DZ. I don't have anything on my agenda, that's the thing. So I'll tell you what, if folks have things that they want on an agenda, get in touch with me. If no one gets in touch with me, I'll cancel the meeting.
I'll be out of town, so.
We cancel the July meeting quite often. We never meet in August. I feel bad because we canceled last month's meeting because we just had some scheduling issues. So I don't
Peter,
want-
it may be that the DDA itself is going to have that combined meeting. That's, Maura said that they were aiming for that in July. So maybe that would be something we could attend.
You could go to that.
So my understanding is that the DDA will have their monthly meeting, and then they'll have a second meeting, which is the work group, which will be maybe 2 weeks off.
But
But the
that would be
DDA joint
something,
meeting is July 6th, is what you're saying.
I think so. The DDA webpage would be authoritative on that. So you think maybe instead of us meeting, we should like say, let's go to the work group? That's a great idea.
Yeah.
We could talk about everything.
Yeah.
and not everybody, I mean, it'll be, they don't even know what the schedule is, but it's a possibility. Because instead of asking people to come to us, I think we really have to be better informed.
I agree with
I
that.
mean, we really do. And
Yeah.
that is the perfect way. I mean, it's sort of reverse that we're going to hear them first, but, it's a thought.
And then meet again in September normally. Okay,
I
let
like
me,
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. I would like to kill the Zoom meetings because they're a pain to set up.
Yep.
What do you think, Zoomers?
I wouldn't be able to make as many if there wasn't the Zoom meeting. So,
Okay, I guess it's not that big a hassle. I have to come in a half hour early and I'm dripping with sweat by the time everything's set up because it's a panic. They have a lot of equipment here. So. All right, so we'll keep the Zoom meetings for the time being. I think we prefer in person though. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on the plate today?
Okay. Thank you, Peter, for setting up.
Yes.
Have a really half hour early.
thank you, Peter. Sorry Zoom makes you sweat.
It's not the only thing that makes him sweat.
Having to actually do anything. Okay. Bye, Zoomers.
Bye.
Okay.